Welcome in, guys. We are on number 7 of In the Box With. And to think, this wasn't going to go anywhere. This was going to be a fill-in for us. And now we've got a rack of people waiting. But today we are privileged to have DealBreakerJ with us, Twitch streamer, recently doing stuff with the Switch. And for those of you who have been watching Down the Local since day one, was the very original co-host. DealBreaker, how are you, my friend?
Good, thank you. Yeah, good. It reminded me of doing Down the Local. It's like a trip down memory. It's basically like a year ago, almost to the day, pretty much when I think Down the Local kicked off. So, so yeah, it's a really nice kind of full circle to come back and do some stuff with it. So yeah, I'm really excited. And thank you very much for having me.
No, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. So for those who watch on a regular basis, the 5 questions, standard 5 questions, but obviously different answers. So let's kick off with number 1. DealBreaker, what is your first major memory of football?
See, I was thinking about this and I was looking at the question when you sent ahead of time, and I was kind of like, there's a few that kind of stick out. I think the obvious one, and I'm not sure if it's something that a lot of other people who've come on have said similar things, but I think the one that has to be up there is probably first going, or maybe not even the first time, the first couple of times going to Stanford Bridge with my dad, being very young, around 6 or 7 years old, and kind of that feeling you get when you're kind of a little person, basically, and you're kind of towered by giants. You kind of get overwhelmed by when you first leave the entrance, you see the pitch and all the players warming up and all that kind of thing. And also afterwards, back in those days, you could smoke in the pubs as well. So also being in the pub with my dad and seeing like a cloud of smoke above these giant people, basically. You know, that's probably the main thing. And it's going to sound like a weird thing to say, but that kind of smell of smoke, I think, like alongside that kind of era of football, kind of, you know, mid-90s sort of thing. So I'd say probably that. I'd say it's probably the biggest thing that sticks up in terms of actual football, like remembering football and kind of like looking at football from a young age. It has to probably be some of Euro 96. I think I would have been about six years old or 5 years old, and kind of I remember, maybe it's because it's shown a lot on TV and maybe I'm kind of thinking that I remember it, but I remember like a lot of after it happened, it being shown a lot on TV.
Yes.
You know, in the years following, a lot of it being re-shown, and that was kind of I'd say tipping point's the wrong word, but something that really kind of got me going, I think, with football. So I think those 2 memories for me are probably the ones that stick out the most.
And that seems to be a reoccurring theme as well for a lot of people we've spoken to. Their first memory is one of them being 6 or 7, but actually they think that maybe there's a lot of that memory has been pieced together by the videos and things like that after as well. So Stanford Bridge, 95, 96, when you first went, all-seater stadium at that point in time? I'm guessing it probably would have been, wouldn't it?
I think during the 96 or 7 season, at some point they removed I'm trying to get my bearings now of where I am in the stadium. They removed the north or the south. I think it might have been the shed or the Matthew Hart. Basically, they removed one of the sides, one of and they basically rebuilt that. So when you kind of look at old videos, it'll be on the right hand side of wherever the camera was, but I don't know if it moved from the east to the west stand, the camera. So I'm thinking at the moment it's the Matthew Harding, because that's where the camera kind of faces now if you're watching it on TV, but it could well be the shed. So you'll watch like some great goals being scored, but there's just like nothing on the side. So to my recollection, it's difficult to say, because when I go there again, the things I remember is like the people and kind of like being kind of quite overwhelmed and looking around, and I can't really remember too much about the stadium itself, apart from really being inside the concourse and like looking at the pitch and things like that, but not really taking in too much detail about the surroundings. But definitely not too much has changed about it since then. It's quite an outdated stadium in terms of its infrastructure, I suppose.
Yeah, which is weird with the amount of money that's been put into Chelsea over the last few years, but not really huge amounts done with the ground or the stadium.
That's right, yeah. And I think there's been obviously talk about a new stadium, things like that. I think they've tried to improve certain things, like the outside of it's occasionally had a bit of a facelift, and they obviously built a hotel on the outside of it, some restaurants, an underground club,
As you do,
where they play music, things like that. They've got a club museum. So they've kind of tried to add as much as they physically able to in a built-up area. I'm not sure if you've been to Stanford Bridge before, but it's a very
only ever passed. I've never been in. So yeah.
So as you know, it's quite a built-up area, and I guess there's not a lot you can do. And even I think I was quite surprised they actually got planning permission in the first place, because I thought there's no way we're going to be able to build there, but they kind of got permission to build and go under, basically dig and make the whole thing from lower and bigger. So obviously that didn't happen in the end. But yeah, I mean, some people say I wish we had a new stadium, but for me and anyone else watching who supports their team and who's had the same stadium throughout the whole time they've been supporting it, that's home. It's what you're used to. It's, even though, like I said, it's got quite slightly older infrastructure, it's, in my opinion, my home, and I don't want it to change, really.
It's also one of those things as well. You see all the other teams when they do change stadium, how much they struggle to start with in a new stadium. So you exactly. Kind of don't want to have to go through that. If you look at it, you think, well, do you know what? It's falling down a little bit, but I don't want to have a season where we struggle. So we'll stay. We'll be fine.
No, exactly. They were talking about 3 years at Wembley, and I was like, oof. No, thank you. I'm not keen on that, to be honest.
Cool. Okay, so number 2, obviously we've already touched on that a little bit. So first major tournament you remember, obviously Euro 96 was the one you mentioned a second ago.
Yeah, obviously I remember kind of like clips and flashes of it. I would say I remember nothing from 98. Barely remember anything from 98, even though there's obviously the very famous Michael Owen goal. Against Argentina in that tournament. I don't remember much of that at all.
Okay.
I barely remember, even like looking back, it kind of barely talks about Euro 2000. Never,
we were really bad.
Something that's completely sort of passed me by. I'm 10 years old as well. But I think 2002 in Japan is the one that, I don't know if you've spoken to people of a similar age group than me. I'm obviously in the same school year as Sean himself. Obviously previous host and does the across the world. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but the correspondent.
Foreign correspondent. That's
it. Yeah. So we're in the same age group. So he'll probably have a very similar story to me as more many, kids at the time, which was England are playing Brazil. It's at like, I can't remember what time in the morning, but what we're going to do is because we don't want all the kids to not go to school, because they would have not gone to school otherwise. We're all going to stick them all in the canteen. They can have their breakfast, and we'll put England Brazil on a big, projector, basically. And that for me, I would say was probably the first game. I would have been about 11, almost 12, because I turned 12 in June, I guess, at that point. That was the first game for me where football kind of like clicked for me. Like I kind of got what it was. I know maybe you might think, and other people might think that's quite late, but that it was kind of the moment where I looked at everyone, peers my own age, everything else, and kind of looked at everyone really up for it, and we were all kind of like in the same boat going for it. And I kind of went, I get it now. This is something I get, because previously if I'm going to Chelsea, it's kind of like, and it's still, even though I've just turned 30, I'm still one of the youngest around kind of where I sit, and it's kind of like it's nice when you have your own kind of like friends or age group, and it's something I've always loved about going to watch England. This is not something I do very much for my dad. That's always kind of like Chelsea throughout the pandemic. We've been doing video calls and all that kind of thing during the game, but when it hits time for England, it's going to the pub for my mates,
Yeah.
doing whatever, and that first kind of kicked off from then, and it felt really quite special at the time to be like, here's my friend who supports Tottenham, Man United on the left of me, Liverpool in front of me. When it's a club season, we all hate each other, but today we're all like, going for it, and that really stuck out that day for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, because not everyone supports the same club, so definitely there is a little bit more of sort of a family feel to the club football. Whereas when it's England, it becomes more of a pack mentality, and everyone clubs together, and everyone's in the same boat, win or lose, unless of course you're living in England and you're not English, and then you don't care who they're playing, you want England to lose. So,
yes.
But yeah, okay, cool. So 2002, I remember going to Brannigan's in Reading before going to work. It was a 7:30 kickoff, and Brannigan's were only serving, they weren't serving alcohol. They served alcohol for one of the group games for the early kickoffs, and it went wrong big time. And then from then on, so the Brazil game was soft drinks only. But I remember being in there and finishing, and then walking around the corner to our office and going to work. So that was interesting. I don't recall
basically the rest of the day being just sad.
Yeah, pretty much. And it became my general mentality of, as soon as England go out, support France. Yeah, and it's worked out quite well for me. So
yeah, no, mine is whoever's in my sweepstake, if they're still in that. So.
I do you know what? Apart from '98, where I had Croatia and they ended up coming third, I always have a rubbish team in the sweepstakes. So they're normally out before England. So I've got nothing. I've got nothing. Cool. Okay, so number 3. When you played football, what was the position you played most consistently?
So this is going to be quite interesting, because I, as much as probably throughout my life, I've loved watching football. Mm-hmm. From a young age, I'd never really enjoyed playing it. But don't get me wrong, I was an active kid, and I enjoyed PE and stuff like that, and I absolutely loved getting out and doing stuff. But for whatever reason, I don't know whether it was at the time, I just didn't enjoy kind of the team. You're in a team, you've got to win kind of thing. And I think my parents didn't kind of want to push me down that road, which I guess a lot of kids at the time, where, dad's taking their kids to football going, you've got to win, you've got to do this. I'm not saying that's but that's, I think they kind of went, do you want to play football, Matt? And I kind of went, yeah, like down the park with mates and stuff, but not, I didn't really have an interest in playing it. Like 11-a-side or anything. So I would say I didn't really play in primary school. I'd say like the friends I had, we kind of like played with like Pokemon cards and stuff like that at break, and we never really kind of played sport and stuff. I played, like I said, in PE and stuff. I enjoyed it. But then I think when I got to secondary school, I kind of had a single swim moment where the guys I was friends with, talk about video games, as I still love, and as you know, with streaming and stuff. But kind of that was all that was on my agenda, and obviously enjoying and watching football. And then kind of a few mates I'd made were into football and played it at lunchtime and stuff. And, I kind of thought like, at some point I've got to kind of not move across, but kind of what I'm getting at. I've kind of got to. And so I started playing football at lunchtime, every lunchtime break time, religiously with these guys, and rubbish at it, obviously, to start with, because never really kind of played any quote unquote professional kind of 11-a-side games or anything. But one thing I did have on my side was speed. Like I was very quick at that for my age. So one thing I found out pretty quickly was the best kids in school, I could catch up to them. I'm not very good wasn't very good at tackling at the time. Could try and tackle them. If they get past me, no problem. I'll just catch up to them again and try and harry them, try and do that. So what I found myself doing a lot of the time was not bothering to attack or to try and score goals, but was just to literally try and nick the ball off someone and give it to someone on my team who was basically better than me. So I found myself doing that a lot. And I think through doing that and then finishing school and obviously meeting like, Sean himself and other people who were playing kind of like 5-a-side, 11-a-side, things like that. They kind of persuaded me and went, no, like come on, have some confidence, come and play 11, not 11 side, like 5 aside, things like that. So I got into a bit of that. And I'd say, again, my strength was probably, get the ball, pick it up, and just literally move on as quick as possible. So I found very quickly that because I was passing to guys who were much better than me, like Sean himself and another friend of ours called Theo, who's really good, I find myself practicing with them, but literally just passing it. So I found like quite quickly I got, I wouldn't say brilliant at passing, but like it became probably alongside speed and have a good strength. So I would say if I had to like pick out a position for myself, I would have said probably left or right back. I'd have said like, because passing and crossing, I thought I was okay at. I could tackle and I could run quite fast at the time. Not these days, but at the time.
So I was thinking when you were sort of describing that, I was thinking fullback, maybe even a bit of the Makelele role to pull in a Chelsea legend. Yeah, a bit of a Kante, chase, harass, harry, pass it simple.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say that's probably, again, because I didn't play any kind of level. I just kind of went, okay, these are a couple of things I feel like I'm okay at. So I'll just keep it simple and do that. People much better than me. So here, I'll get the ball, I'll move it on, which a lot of people my age didn't really do. I think even if they didn't have the same quality as the better kids at school, they went, no, I'm playing football at break. I want to run it past the whole team. I want to shoot. I want to do something. I want to do some tricks, but I don't know. I've always just found joy in being able to kind of, that sounds a bit boring, but just kind of go, right, like if I can get the ball off someone who's really good, who's a lot better than me, and just move it on, for me, that feels like, not goal, but it feels kind of like a great kind of moment for me, like almost something I can celebrate.
But it's also, I suppose, from that point of view as well, it's a contribution, isn't it? It's not, you're delivering something to the team that no one else is potentially delivering or prepared to deliver. And I do you know what? I hats off to you, because so many people, as you say, no matter where their limitations are, will still try and be the hero every time. And actually that realization that this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm going to focus on, you don't see enough. People start to notice it when they're 25, 26, 27. And by then it's a little bit too late. And, the kids who play centre-back for a team, or the guys who play centre-back for a team, but as soon as they sign for someone new, they go, no, I'm a forward. No, you're not, mate. I'm definitely a forward. No, you're not. Cool. Okay. So then, if there was one thing you could have done to enhance the ability that you had, what would it have been? Or based on what you've said, would you actually have not wanted to enhance it and very happy with the way you were?
I think there's a couple of things I would have liked to have done differently. And it's a couple of different points in time as well. I guess the first one would be, my parents say, do you want to play football? Yes, I would. Yeah. I'd like to join a team. I'd like to do that, because then, I'd probably end up picking up, different things, the ability to, to shoot, to run with the ball, to use my weaker foot, things that I've never been very good at. Literally, it's going to be, for me, if I get the ball, I'm stopping dead. And then I'm like, it's almost like, when Raquelme sort of late on kind of couldn't run around and kind of got the ball and stopped and went, right, there's a part, I'm just going to move it on sort of straight away kind of thing. That's kind of what I do. I couldn't kind of dribble and things like that. So, I feel like if I did that from a young age, I would have picked up a few more things I could have added to my locker, I suppose. Maybe a bit of strength as well, potentially, because I was never the strongest kid as well. So, if I again, when I said if I went to go and tackle one of the kids who are better than me, if they're strong as well as quick and good, and I ran into them shoulder barge, I'm probably sent flying. So that's probably another thing that I'd have liked to have done. So I think that's probably the first thing I'd say. And then I think the next point in time is, and I mean, it's going to be a kind of weird one. I think, like I said, when I started playing 5-a-side and things like that with Sean himself, he was very much kind of like very encouraging. Like for me, even though I was like, I'm very clearly like the worst person here, who's kind of like, no, like, do what you do, keep going and things like that. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he kind of appreciated that I would do quite simple things and just kind of, here's the ball to you, to Theo, to whoever, go and do your thing. And also, trying to get me comfortable in positions that I wouldn't be comfortable in before. If I'm playing, we had one five-a-side game where we were playing a team who just weren't interested in playing football. They just wanted to kind of start kicking us, and got to the point where I was kind of having a go at one of the guys and standing up for you. I think Sean even said something like, I couldn't have imagined like you doing that kind of before and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but I think I went to university and I picked up obviously drinking quite heavily, which very much affected like my I don't know, like the physical side of me basically, and stopped playing football for a long time. So effectively, any time I've tried to play football since then, the biggest thing that I had was obviously pace. Is now it's gone. So I wish that I kind of stuck with it, because we had one game, a five-a-side game when we started uni with a few other guys, and we ended up playing the Portsmouth seconds, like 5 of them. So the second team. So they are obviously shit hot. They were incredible. We lost the game, five-a-side game, 25-1. And we were so kind of like, no, this isn't really for us. Even though I think anyone who's just started a team, I think that Portsmouth second team, anyone probably would have been battered. But we kind of took it to heart and kind of went, it's probably about time we called it a day, lads, and kind of just stopped. Because that's the other thing as well. The football societies at Portsmouth, you had to be of a very good quality to join, I think. Even if you wanted to join and they said, oh, you don't have to be that good. Even like the worst kind of lowest team you can think of at the uni, they would be, better than potentially any players I've ever played with. So it was very difficult to kind of get into it. And also it's that thing of you're there then, and you've got mates who all enjoy football. So, and then you're thinking, I can do that, and also it's the money as well. It does cost a bit to be in these societies sometimes. So, right, or would I go out with my mates who enjoy football every Saturday, go to the pub, watch soccer Saturday, football with them, and it's a student union stuff like that, which I ended up doing. I haven't played for a long time. When I have a few times, just massively like out of shape, no fitness, and just kind of that's probably the biggest, most recent one I say for me. I kind of wish I stuck at it and kind of not even stuck at like playing five-a-side, but just kept fit enough to play. Because I think even if I get fit enough now, I'd say I'm never going to be as quick as I was when I was younger. So, but the thing I never probably had then was positional awareness. And because I've never had that, I'm not probably going to get it now. So it's something that I think, that's another. I think the only thing I probably have left now is passing, probably, in a bit of crossing. That's probably so. Headers and volleys, I'm your man. Sign me up. I'll be there putting the balls in. That'll be fine. But anything else, I'm afraid. I'm out. I think. But no, I'd love to get back into it sometime and find some people kind of local to me at some point. And just people, but also people who are also very relaxed about it. Because I tried a couple of years ago to get back into it, and I was like, look, I'm out of shape. I'm not very good anymore. Like, I haven't played for literally years. They're like, no, it's fine. And I was like, almost jogging around, and people having a go at me, and they were going, "Oh, you're being lazy." And I was like, I literally, I'm giving it like as best I got. And they were all really unhappy and took it very, very seriously. Even though it wasn't even a five-a-side game, it wasn't a league game. It was, they'd rented out a big Astro pitch and just went, no, not even a referee, just let's have a kick around, and they sort of went mental. So I think that kind of hit my confidence as well, because I was like, well, if I can't have a kick around without people screaming at me, then I think that's probably it, which I think probably isn't right. I'm sure there's people out there who are in the same mindset as me and just want to kind of have a bit of a laugh. But I think I'd like to kind of pursue that. I just need to kind of stay on top of it and go, no, there are people out there who want to do similar things and get back, just have a bit of fun, get back into shape and do that. So I think if I can find that, then I'll maybe find some joy again. But otherwise, those are probably the things that I would have changed looking back on how to prolong, I'd say, my very short football career in five-a-side.
a good place to start to get back into it, if you're feeling really out of shape and things like that, is the walking football. Initially, it was all targeted at people of a certain age, but now actually you see younger people playing it and things like that, people coming back from injuries, and Yeah, so yeah, it's always worth looking at, and
It might be worth looking
majority
at,
of the time the people are a little bit older. You don't get youngsters, but you're looking at sort of 30 and upwards.
Yeah.
So the attitude is normally a bit better,
Yeah.
depending on where you're playing, I suppose. But
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so question number 5, and it's the big 5. The 5 key attributes you feel makes up the perfect modern day footballer. So not a specific position, but
Yeah.
what they would need as a starting base.
Okay. So I thought the biggest one for me, and I kind of touched on it in the last question, is positional awareness. I think whichever position you play on the pitch, anywhere, the players that I think last the longest in terms of their career and things like that, they will be able to go on because they have this. Like, it's something that is just there, and it's always been there from the start, and it's always there. To use, I guess, one big example I know is John Terry. Played obviously for Chelsea.
Yep.
He was never a quick player, never a quick centre back, but he was able to read the game at 5 things before they happened. And I feel like that's how he was able to go on as long as he did, because to use, I guess, his England teammate Rio Ferdinand was obviously very quick. That was one of his biggest assets. And as soon as that pace kind of went, it all kind of went downhill a little bit. So I think, but it's not just, that position again. I get another player I talks about in one of the previous questions, Riquelme, as well as another one that I think I absolutely loved watching that player when I was younger. I obviously didn't watch game in, game out of La Liga, but, when I watched him, I was like, to my recollection, he could kind of just walk around a football pitch almost, but because he was always in the right place, he knew what was coming, he knew what wasn't coming, then he kind of could just run a game without really going into third gear.
He was,
so I think,
epic.
and obviously strikers is an obvious one. You need to, see so many players that strikers that someone puts a great ball in and the centre forward's not there to finish it. And all the top centre forwards in the world are gambling. They're always gambling and going, like, I think Harry Kane scored a goal in the last game week against Newcastle where maybe it's not quite the same thing, but he kind of, it was something that looked gone on TV. It was kind of like something, and then there was a mix up, but because he was still there and he was going like, no, this is what it is. Maybe that's not quite the same as positional awareness, but it's that kind of like, for a striker, kind of what I mean, that kind of strikers, I need to know where things are and sense them.
I think defenders and midfielders definitely are on the positional awareness. I think the striker thing, it's a knack. It's almost, they work on it, but it's almost an element of luck, being in the right place at the right time. And you will, as you say, there is those elements of that positional awareness where the striker will always make a run across the near post because he knows that's where the ball's coming. But having that ability to not get sucked into play and just hover out, like you're saying with Harry Kane's goal, literally not involved, shouldn't have even had an opportunity to score, but he hung around an area where he thought a ball may drop. Gary Lineker was a prime example of the same thing. Not, when his pace had gone to an extent, his final years at Spurs, the guy was still scoring 25, 30 goals a season because he just had a knack of being in the right place at the right time to tap in the ball. It's a mentality thing, I think, towards that. But cool. Okay, so number 1, positional awareness.
Yeah, I'd say that. Number 2 for me probably has to be vision. I'd say. I mean that kind of encompasses a few different things, but it comes down to, in my mind, players being able to make the right decision without really having to think about it. So, I guess people have different ideas of vision where they'll think about, a Hollywood pass from a Steven Gerrard or a Fabregas or something. I'm talking about the ability to I guess kind of receive the ball and not kind of think on it for too long. And go, I'm going to pass it sideways to my centre back teammate or my midfield teammate or something else. That kind of, right, I'm getting the ball. There's someone in front of me. I've got a split second to think about this, and I need to just make the correct pass. Get it forward, get it into someone who's in a kind of far better position, whether it's something they've noticed in terms of okay, the other team are light on that side because they're pressing us on this side. So if I can get a quick ball over to the other side quickly and kind of do that. So I guess that kind of vision encompasses a few things for me, but I think it comes down to being sensible decision making wise and kind of being able to do that, because a player that frustrates me a little bit when it comes down to that, I've seen him for Everton, and obviously he's been at Chelsea. Now he's at Villa, is Ross Barkley, who, you know, very, very talented, clearly very talented player, but kind of that's one thing I felt where he's lacked in terms of his development, or where I think he's kind of hit the ceiling of could have been, you know, the star player for England in a once in a generation player for England, and has become, you know, I'm not saying a bad player. I think he's a very good player, but you know, I think
even the Villa team now.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that it's frustrated a lot of fans, and you know, it's something that I think, but it's not just his position; it's other positions as well, where it's just the vision to be able to pick out something, and I guess the pass is the most key one, but the correct pass as well, not just something to go a Jorginho or something like that, for instance, where they go, okay, fine, he's got the vision, but if he's passing it to Kovacic to his left about 5 yards away 200 times a game, I wouldn't really call that the kind of vision I'm talking about. Something that's going to give your team an advantage that might not necessarily be picked up by a supporter just watching on TV, not thinking about it. Do you sort of see what I mean? That kind of...
Yeah. I would also tag in the vision to being something you said about John Terry and being sort of multiple steps ahead of other people. You're seeing the game one step ahead. So when that ball comes into you, actually that split second thought of where you're going to pass it has actually happened before you've got the ball. And you see it even on Sunday mornings now. You see the players that stand out are the ones that when a ball's coming to them, they've already had a look around of where other players are before they've received it. And you see the other players who don't even make themselves big in the first instance to hold on to the ball. They just wait for it to come to them. So, there is there is a big shout in there. So, vision, massive tick from me. Number 3.
So for this one, I think, obviously, clearly in today's game, in every position, I think it's something you probably could have gotten away with. And it's something you still see some special players get away with, but work rate, for me, is another one. I think the work rate in this day and age is so important, in a game where, you know, you need everyone to be on it, where, you know, pressing is one of the... It's the in fashion thing to do at the moment, is to be
definitely
that pressing team. When they lose the ball, everyone has to be on it straight away. And I think it's great, I guess from an English point of view as well. For a long time, people will appreciate a player if they've quote unquote put in a shift. It's why I think so many Man United fans loved Ji-sung Park for so many years when he was there, because he never stopped running. And I remember reading a book by Gianluca Vialli, and not just by him, obviously he kind of helped write it with an actual writer of a book. And it's called The Italian Job. And in it he kind of talks about work rate and says, you know, in England, if you've run your bollocks off basically for 90 minutes, then you'll receive a standing ovation from the crowd if you go off in the Premier League or whatever. If you do that in Italy, you're getting bottles chucked out of you. If you haven't made a contribution to the match, you're getting booed off the pitch basically. You know, so it's interesting, I suppose, back then, that kind of, and maybe that mentality comes into it of, you know, being young and growing up with football and that kind of thing. But maybe that's kind of ingrained in how I believe football should always be played. But I think not only is it something that you want to see, I think it shows that there's a desire and a hunger for that player to want to do well for your team. It comes across. It comes across to the fans. You know, if you watch a player and they're walking around, if you're trying to get the ball back and you're just watching them kind of walk, that's one of the most irritating things you can see, because you're watching maybe some other teammates, maybe, you know, let's use again Chelsea example, Kante harrying, going for the ball, and a player who's not really known for his kind of pressing ability, like Giroud or someone like that, who's kind of jogging around. And although, you know, I appreciate from an analytical standpoint, that's not his game, that's not the strongest point of his game, you kind of think, come on, man, just at least look like you're like
Half
trying
effort.
to, you know, but then I kind of, you know, think about it after the game and think, you know, no, they're different players, but this is why I think players like Werner play at the moment, because they're very good at kind of pressing the centre backs, and even though they can't hit a Kazas or Banjo at the moment, there are other levels to you know, especially the modern forwards. I think work rate is so key, and I think I think there are also so many successful players who become successful because of work rate, not because of you know, individual talent. And I think, again, sorry, this is kind of becoming Chelsea centric, but it's something that I kind of know. I think Frank Lampard is probably one of those key kind of stories about work rate, because he's one of those who I don't think was, you know, massively born with bags of talent, but is someone who would basically stay basically the latest every day after training, come in the earliest, practice, work, and then you just saw these things that he was doing, and you know, you never kind of watched him and went, he's world class at one particular thing, but it's the facts that the work was being put in, and because the work's being put in, the rewards were kind of being taken out of that, and that's why he kind of became the player he did, in my mind anyway. I mean, obviously I'm looking at it from the inside kind of point of view, but that's the biggest example I can see of work rate kind of coming into the fold and being a big success.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of also, you sort of mentioned Ji-sung Park, but I think there's a lot of Man United fans that I know that had so much love for Darren Fletcher.
Yeah,
and I'll be honest,
Fletcher as well.
I never really got it when he was at Man U, but then when he went to West Brom, and was it West Brom? Yeah, he was at West Brom, wasn't he? And it was a struggling West Brom, and he was the standout player. And I think because the work rate was still the same, but because the players at Man United were on a different level, you didn't notice how good a footballer he was. When he went to West Brom and he was playing with a lower level, the work rate was still there, but God, he was a decent player as well. And, you know, thank God I didn't speak to any of those Man United fans anymore at that point, because I would have had to go back, you know, tail between my legs. Do you know what, guys? You were probably right. I didn't have to do that. Yeah, I didn't have to do that. And I don't think they watched this, so it's fine.
No, well, we'll have to get them watching for the next episode.
Cool. So work rate number 3. Number 4.
This is kind of where because those are kind of my main 3, I'd say, at the moment, in terms of what I kind of think. So I think these next 2 are kind of, you know, I wouldn't say they're as important to me. But I'd say in the modern game, in the Premier League, I'd probably say strength, or not even just being like a strong looking guy, but core strength. You know, you see so many players come into this league, and one of the key things that you'll see happen time and time again to a new signing is, I've got the ball, I'm going to pick it up, and then you'll get someone from midfield lean in. They've gone flying, but the referee's like, no, it's a shoulder to shoulder, and it's kind of fair. And you know, or just muscled off the ball easily, you know, defender shepherding it out, and that kind of inability to not compete with those situations. So I think, you know, I'm kind of seeing that at the moment, again, from a Chelsea point of view, with Kai Havertz and Timo Werner, not being able to do that. And I think that's something that will come. They're both young enough to be able to do that. And I think most players do pick it up. But there are still some players that you look at who kind of don't make the grade and think, if you had this attribute, you would be able to do so much more. Like, you'd be able to do so much more. And I look at like a younger player for us, Billy Gilmore, who looks a fantastic prospect. But that's something that happened to him a few times. He's quite a small chap, but not kind of the strongest. And I think that's something he will work on. I think that's something that he'll get better at. But I just think, you know, those positions, I think, to be fair, most positions over the pitch, you kind of have to have that strength. And I'm not talking about, like I said, we don't want to turn you into, you know, I guess, Akinfenwa or someone else like that. Because core strength is important as well. Because even you can look at guys at the moment like Raheem Sterling, who I believe has quite good core strength at the moment. He's quite, you know, yes, okay, he can go down from time. That's kind of part of the gamesmanship aspect of the way Man City play and other teams. But he
He is
doesn't
quite
let
hard to
himself
knock
get.
off the ball. Yeah.
He used to be one of those players who I just described. You could go into him and he would kind of just go flying a bit. But now,
Yeah.
and again, I think the best example of it is Lionel Messi. He is a little guy. He doesn't look particularly strong, but you can go into him, you can go flying into him, and his center of gravity just keeps him up. His core body strength is incredible. Second to none, in my opinion, for that kind of player who doesn't look particularly big. So I think it's an attribute that I think, and especially centre backs as well, or defenders, because again, how many goals have we seen where someone's shepherding out a play and someone who's just a little bit stronger than them can go shoulder to shoulder. They've fallen over and they've gone, oh no. But I've just conceded a goal because of that.
Keeping on the Chelsea theme, I think that there was a danger of that happening with Andres Christensen when he first came in. He was
very much. I think still
good in the air,
is a bit
strong, but he's definitely getting more combative. But whenever he's in the team for a short period of time, he looks good for a couple of games, and then all of a sudden it'll suddenly seem really weak. He'll come up against a stronger striker, and he'll struggle, and it's improving. But that was definitely very apparent when he first got into that Chelsea team, because initially he was going to be the replacement for John Terry, and that was not happening.
A long time ago now. I wasn't one of his biggest fans, but I think it's one of those players that he's played quite well, both for Conte in a back three and now Tuchel. When Sarri, Lampard, others have tried him in a back two, just not at the races at all. So I just think best position is in the middle of the back three, quite solid, quite decent there. And obviously, guys like Rudiger as well. I know we're kind of moving on from the initial topic, but I think that's so important for me, just in any position of the pitch, to have that strength to be able to kind of stand up for yourself, because it's a physical sport and you need to be able to win those battles. And I think especially in the Premier League, the referees won't kind of just go. In other leagues, they might go, someone's gone shoulder to shoulder with you, you're an attacking player, I'll give you the free kick or the foul. Whereas now I think they're a little bit more lenient with, no, it's a fair battle, I'm sorry mate, you've just lost it. And so I think that for me that's a key part of the game, to be able to have that strength to compete in all areas of the pitch.
Cool. Okay. And then number 5.
Number 5. This is probably one that I haven't thought, so it's probably going to be one that I kind of come out with. But I think, I was thinking about loyalty, but then I think that's kind of a bit of a. I don't necessarily now think the same way, because I'm now a bit older and wiser, and I think that we all work jobs. Everyone who watches this works a job, and if someone offers them a better job on more money, you're going to take it, aren't you? So it's like, one of those things that, in an ideal world, you want your player, whoever's you're playing for, to stay with you and to play with you. But now I don't necessarily think that's kind of fair. I think if a better offer comes along, they don't support the club, they don't have any affinity to them.
The one thing we don't do, though, is we don't go to a current job and say, look, I've done quite well over the last year, I need a 50% pay rise.
No, that's definitely not it.
Because then we wouldn't have that one job.
I think loyalty is not the right word I'm looking for, but there's something in the kind of, I suppose, mentality of playing for the team you play for and wanting to, I think there are guys, one of the examples to me is someone like Declan Rice, who he's had loads of kind of transfer talk, Man United, Man City, Chelsea, all these teams, like even teams from abroad looking at him, things like that. He's someone who's just kind of kept his head down, working really hard for the team and kind of reaping awards. And I think you look at the other end of the spectrum and I think everyone uses his name so much, I don't think it's necessarily fair, but it's the first name that's kind of come to my head because of, I suppose, the profile and how much it's put into the press. Is someone like Pogba, where it's maybe not necessarily his fault, but his agent's fault for kind of going, even if he hasn't necessarily played very well, going, my client wants to go to Madrid, he wants to go here, he wants to do that. You never hear anything about Declan Rice and that kind of, he wants to go here, he wants to go here. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you might hear rumblings in the press of going, oh yeah, he's interested in in going to Man City. But then you kind of go, well, who wouldn't be?
Who isn't? Yeah, exactly.
In the league, anyone kind of would be interested in that proposition. But he's not throwing his toys out the pram, which would be, in my opinion, very easy to do at West Ham, to kind of go, actually, you know what, I want to go here. But I think that mentality thing is very important to me, for players to go, no, you know what, these are my employers. These fans are here. They wear the badge. There's something about wearing a badge for me that needs to be respected. And I'm gonna do my best whilst I'm in this position. I think that's something that I wouldn't say is lost completely, because I don't think there's any player who goes out, but there are so many times when, and maybe agents and the way agents come into it does affect you, because you could be, I suppose Erling Haaland's maybe a good example of this. Someone who's he's getting down, he's playing his football, he's still very young at Dortmund, he's playing at a high level, and he's doing really well. And his agent's coming out and going like, we're talking to Madrid, we're talking to Barcelona, we're going to go to England next week and talk to Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United. And that's not necessarily Erling Haaland's fault. I just think that kind of thing isn't helpful. Maybe you think, you know what, Erling Haaland's 20 years old, like, he could have another couple of seasons at Dortmund. There's no need to kind of to kind of rush it. But I don't necessarily think that he's the one who's going, I want to go at, because when you watch him, he looks like a player who enjoys himself on the pitch, and who's having fun enjoying his football. So I think probably agents is a big problem. So I think maybe it's not necessarily an attribute for players themselves, but I don't know, it's a difficult one. But I think just that mentality to be, this is who I'm playing for. I need to respect the badge. I need to respect the fans and do the best job I can week in, week out, I suppose.
Based on all of that, what I've written down is dedication and focused.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So, Declan Rice fully appreciates that. He got knocked back by a number of clubs, or Chelsea, but then someone else, I think, before going to West Ham. And actually, West Ham gave him his opportunity. He's achieved regular spot in the England team. He's sat in 4th place in the Premier League at the moment.
Absolutely.
He feels he owes West Ham something. And if he does go, he'll go with a glorious handshake from West Ham. They'll wave him off, and they'll be counting their 70, 80, 90 million quid, and he'll go on to a bigger, better club, potentially.
It's the right way to leave a club, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think someone, even though it's kind of, I think Eden Hazard kind of did it in the right way as well, I suppose. Like,
in the end,
someone who kind of, but I think that's another player who kind of always went, a lot of what he said was taken out of context, where he kind of went, as a kid, like, I'd have loved to play. And then I kind of go, again, I'm kind of like, yeah, who wouldn't? Like, it's fair enough. He's not from England. He's not English. He's got no particular affiliations to Chelsea before that. And you still watch him week out, and he still loves the club. He loves the badge and everything. And then he kind of had that season where he was like, I'd like to go to Madrid now. And we kind of went, okay, give us one more year. And I thought he might kick off here. Like, he might be like, nah, not playing. But he went, no, okay, fair. Like,
was it the season before that he had the big fallout with Mourinho? And that was when it was all the shouts of the player power, and Mourinho had been sacked because people didn't want to perform for him and things like that. Because I get Hazard for 5-6 years at Chelsea was unbelievable for 4 or 5 of them, and there was one where he just didn't really do anything, and there was all the stuff in the press about him having the spats with Mourinho. Was it Costa and someone else were constantly...
Yeah, I think Mourinho, we obviously know the character Mourinho is.
He don't help himself.
And, it's happening. It happens everywhere he goes to everyone he speaks to. And I think, we talked about work rate earlier as one of the things and I said that some players don't really have it in terms of like the kind of drive, and Eden Hazard is probably the biggest example of that. I've seen quotes from John Terry going, he walks around in training not putting any effort in, and I kind of give him a kick up the arse and say, come on, what are you doing? We've got a game on Saturday. And he goes, it'll be fine, give me the ball on Saturday, I'll score. And John Terry went, and he did. So sometimes you do have those players who are kind of that talented, that people kind of allow them to not do. I don't particularly like it. I don't agree with it, but that's the game basically. That's how it is. And I think he's probably one of those players where a lot of managers accept it because they go, right, that's Eden Hazard. He's going to win us the game.
Yeah.
So many games of this season. So I'm not going to rub him up the wrong way. Whereas I think Jose Mourinho is a manager who goes, I don't care who it is. If they don't do the way I want them to do it, then they're out. And there's probably a lot of players that a better man, or not a better manager, but a more kind of tactful manager, let's say.
Yeah.
Like Carlo Ancelotti maybe, or someone will go, right, this player needs to be, hand around the shoulder. This player needs to kick up the arse. This player, I can kind of say, okay, you don't need to train every single day of the week, and just kind of have that like that man management rather than going, you're all doing this my way. I don't know. And that's I think where Mourinho went wrong in his last season at Chelsea when results weren't going well. He was getting more agitated with the players. And I'd say probably the players that had more flair than because when it came out, they were like, these are the players that supported him, and they're all the players like the really strong hard workers like Matic and Ivanovic and like all these guys basically. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see what's happening here. Like, so I don't know. I think, but that I guess, yes. But in terms of, I think dedication and focus, going back to that, I think that's probably a really fair reflection on kind of what I mean. Just just be dedicated to the team you're with. We're not telling you have to like get a tattoo with the club or sleep in the club pajamas or things like that. Just give something back to the fans who support you, the kids that are going to idolize you and stuff like that. We're all old enough and ugly enough to understand now. I mean, some of us, I still get some fully grown men that kick off when a player leaves a football club. But we all get it. It's part of the game. It's a job, a very high paid job, but a job nonetheless.
Yep.
And it's a revolving door. So while you're there, enjoy it, have fun, but keep trying and keep being dedicated, I suppose. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So Deal Breaker's top 5 attributes are positional awareness, vision, work rate, strength, core strength, and then we've kind of combined the last bit into dedication and focus to fully cover the whole topic. It has been an absolute pleasure having you back on Down the Local, Matt.
I was about to say, it sounds like I've basically just done John Terry there, isn't it? That's what I've kind of gone for.
And I done it. I pretty much done me.
No, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and I'd love to do even if it's not the same kind of question format. I'd love to do more and stuff like that. Where I am, so
yes,
give me a shout. And obviously, I hope everyone is watching, enjoying this, and not putting in the comments, "fucking Chelsea scum," which I'm sure they will be. But no, so it's fine. I'd love to do more stuff. And I love the work that you and Coop are doing at the moment. It's really great to see.
Thank you.
And please keep it up.
Thank you very much. For now, though, guys, we will head over back to me and Coop in real time. Cheers, Matt. Thank you.
No worries.